Australia, a British newsman reports.
The ABC Television News Network presents American Newsstand, the mid-afternoon report with the accent on youth. Brought to you by Milton Bradley, producer of exciting age-identified family games. Now here's Roger Sharp.
Good afternoon. At his news conference today, President John Kennedy spoke out in reference to the growing number of complaints.
But the new year did come, and I hope it's a good one for you.
Ron Cochran with the news has been brought to you by the ABC Television Network. The new Congress meets next Monday amid more than usual excitement. You may be sure there'll be a lot of changes on Capitol Hill, and there may be some surprises. For a well-informed preview of the situation, watch Issues and Answers this Sunday afternoon on ABC, when four prominent senators will discuss the new Congress.
Good evening. Konrad Adenauer is dead. The man Eisenhower called one of the great statesmen of our time, and Churchill called the greatest German statesman since Bismarck, died at his home in Rondorf outside Bonn. 91 years old, beaten in the end by a week-long attack of influenza and bronchitis. The former West German chancellor was one of a very small group of men who forged a new Europe out of the ruins of World War II. Of that group, only Charles de Gaulle is left. De Gaulle will attend Der Alte's funeral, and so too will President Johnson. Tonight, a full report.
Peter Jennings with the news, a 30-minute summary of the day's events, brought to you Monday through Friday in color by ABC News.
Press side.
ABC Evening News with Bob Young, a complete report. Brought to you Monday through Friday in color by ABC News.
Good evening. 14,600 naval and air reservists and National Guardsmen from coast to coast have been called up to active duty immediately.
Frank Reynolds. Tonight, Arab guerrillas retaliate and the Security Council meets in wake of Israeli weekend raid. Two Pueblo crewmen charge North Koreans with indiscriminate beatings. The first in a series of 3 reports on conditions in American nursing homes. And Howard K. Smith comments on the Israeli commando attack. Now, here is Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. Arab guerrillas in Lebanon today promised a rain of revenge attacks in retaliation for the weekend Israeli commando raid.
From ABC News headquarters in New York, I'm Frank Reynolds.
And I'm Howard K. Smith in Washington. These are tonight's headlines. Hurricane Camille strikes the Mississippi Gulf Coast, caving in homes and killing at least 22 people. And the Great Rock Festival in Bethel, New York is over. 3 days of music, marijuana, and mod morals for nearly 500,000 young people.
Also tonight, reports from Charles Murphy on the devastation left by Hurricane Camille, and John Scally on the dismal prospects for progress at the Paris peace talks. Details on these and other stories in a moment.
Hopefully, the worst of Hurricane Camille is now over.
Good evening. I'm Howard K. Smith in Washington.
I'm Harry Reasoner in New York. These are tonight's headlines. A voice identified as that of Patricia Hearst says in a taped message that she has chosen to stay with her kidnappers and fight. And tonight, a commentary on a beautiful springtime in Washington. A voice identified by a San Francisco radio station as that of Patricia Hearst said in a taped message today that she has chosen to remain with her kidnappers.
From New York, this is ABC News. Now, Harry Reasoner.
Good evening. There were funerals in both Israel and Uganda today.
Harry Reasoner. Barbara Walters. Bring you the news.
Good evening. Our major story tonight is that Agriculture Secretary Earl Butz has paid the price for telling an obscene racial joke on a commercial airline flight. Secretary Butz resigned today. The president accepted with regret, but immediately. Closer to home, I have a new colleague to welcome. Barbara?
Thank you, Harry. Well, tonight has finally come for me, and I'm very pleased to be with you, Harry, and with ABC News. And later I'll have a chance to comment on my new duties. We'll tell you tonight about a Supreme Court action which allows the death penalty to go ahead in at least 3 states. We will hear some unofficial but optimistic word on the Ford strike. We'll have a direct report. And our newsmaker interview tonight by satellite is with the President of Egypt, Anwar Sadat. He will reveal his plan to help end the fighting in Lebanon.
Earl Butz resigned today in the aftermath of repeating a 30-year-old joke, racist and obscene, about blacks.
This is the ABC Evening News with Harry Reasoner and Barbara Walters. And tonight, Howard K. Smith in Washington.
Good evening. Barbara is on vacation. Elvis Presley's family and friends and fans assembled in Memphis, Tennessee through the night and into today.
This is the ABC Evening News with Harry Reasoner and Barbara Walters, who's in California. Also Frank Reynolds and Howard K. Smith in Washington.
Good news arrived at the White House. Unemployment is down to its lowest point in 3 years. I'm Ann Compton.
A government anti-smoking drive is launched. Some critics say it's not enough. Others say it goes too far. I'm Charles Gibson.
The Israeli and Egyptian defense chiefs get together to resume the Mideast peace talks. I'm Jerry King.
Gerald Ford says he'll probably run again if Jimmy Carter does a bad job as president. I'm Barbara Walters.
Good evening. The nation's unemployment rate fell sharply last month, ending the year 1977 at 6.4%.
Two leading Russian dissidents go on trial amid worldwide protests. Secretary of State Vance says the trials will aggravate relations with Moscow, but the SALT talks must continue.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Max Robinson in Chicago, Peter Jennings in London, Barbara Walters special reports, and tonight a comment from Howard K. Smith, and from our Washington desk, Frank Reynolds.
Good evening, and welcome to the first broadcast of the World News Tonight.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Max Robinson in Washington. Part 3 of a special assignment series assessing President Carter's performance and problems. And from Vienna, Peter Jennings, Barbara Walters, and Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. President Carter has now landed in Vienna for his first encounter with Leonid Brezhnev, leader of the world's other superpower.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings at the Foreign Desk in London, Max Robinson at the National Desk in Chicago. A special assignment report, gun control, overseas, a world of difference. And from our desk in Washington, Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. Doctors use the word super to describe President Reagan's progress today.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings at the Foreign Desk in London.
Libya's Colonel Gaddafi is on a visit to Western Europe. The Austrian government says welcome.
Max Robinson at the National Desk in Chicago.
Closing arguments are over, and Klaus von Bülow's fate will soon be in the hands of the jury.
And from our desk in Washington, Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. The President of the United States was asked today whether this country is carrying out covert operations against Nicaragua.
December 5th, 1983, the U.S. becomes more deeply involved in the war in Lebanon. A car bomb in Beirut leaves at least 14 dead. And Kremlin leaders hold an unusual news conference in Moscow. From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. With 2 American planes shot down on the weekend while attacking Syrian positions in Lebanon, with 8 more Marines killed during yesterday's shelling. As the Olympic torch began its journey across this country, a stunning announcement from Moscow.
The Soviet National Olympic Committee has announced it considers impossible the participation of Soviet athletes in the 23rd Olympic Games in Los Angeles.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Tonight reporting from Los Angeles.
Good evening. Until today, not many people believed the Soviet Union would stay away from the Summer Olympics here in Los Angeles.
ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. The campaigning is all but over. The candidates have had their say. Tomorrow the voters get a chance to speak.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. We begin this evening with revelations about one of the world's most influential international civil servants during the 1970s.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. Mikhail Gorbachev is back in the Soviet Union, back to reality.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. There were decisions made in 4 different American courtrooms today having to do with very highly publicized cases.
The Justice Department wants to know, did the tobacco companies lie? In Los Angeles, the police go back again to Nicole Simpson's house. And religion in the public schools, the scholar who searches for common ground.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin in Washington tonight, where the chairman of the Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company has accused his accusers of blowing smoke. The U.S. Marines in Haiti staying longer than intended. The O.J. Simpson case, almost a rush of people who want to be jurors. And research on human embryos. This administration believes in public funding.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the unexpected in Haiti. On World News Tonight this Friday, the debate rages on about the influence of all that money in politics.
We have played by the rules, but I know and you know we need to change the rules.
The Clinton campaign has been breaking the law.
The government orders that every Boeing 737 in the country must undergo a safety inspection. And the letters to 15 million car owners which say airbags can kill small children.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, and now we've arrived at the last weekend. It's been a long haul when you think that this campaign began the day after the election 4 years ago. On World News Tonight this Thursday, the U.S. campaign against Saddam Hussein, a real jolt today to U.S.-Russian relations. El Nino winds up to hit California again. How much more of this can the nation expect? And now that the golfer Casey Martin has won the right to ride, we'll take a closer look at the law which made it possible.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, Thursday, February 12th. This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a casualty in the Persian Gulf crisis. Not a single bomb has been dropped, but there's been damage. On World News Tonight this Tuesday, why it's so difficult to find John F. Kennedy's plane. Who's going to win the political fight about cutting taxes? And how much do the voters care? In Yugoslavia, what looks like an environmental disaster caused by NATO's bombing. 30 years ago today, one giant leap for mankind, and nothing like it since. We'll take a closer look at what the engineers say is possible.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. It's rather difficult to tell this evening whether the Coast Guard and the Navy are making any serious progress in their search for John F. Kennedy Jr.'s plane. On World News Tonight this Thursday, trying to pick up the pace for Al Gore. The liberal establishment has lots of money to spend. The letter he wrote just before he died. The Russian sailor trapped in the submarine curse. Half price for an SUV. The Arizona idea for using natural gas. But it's costing a fortune. And trying to establish an entertainment beachhead in your home. Now it is Sony's turn.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin again tonight with the most important movable event in the country, the presidential election campaign, with 12 days to go. On World News Tonight this Friday, a convoy attacked on the road to Kabul. The Pentagon says it killed the enemy, but there are reports from Afghanistan that they were not. The Pentagon is sending a new weapon to Afghanistan. The mountains will be a proving ground. The government offers thousands of people an experimental vaccine for anthrax, but does not necessarily recommend it. We'll take a closer look tonight at what it means to be a human guinea pig, the volunteers in the name of country. And finally, how little we know of the sea, the 20-foot creature in the deep.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. For the first time in 3 days, the U.S. is bombing in Afghanistan again. On World News Tonight, a bad accident in New York Harbor. The Staten Island ferry crashes into a dock. Numerous people are killed. In the Palestinian territories, 3 American contractors working for the government are killed by a bomb. In the Kobe Bryant rape case, the prosecution struggles today on a question of credibility. And the baseball fan in Chicago who may wish that he'd stayed home. Just our luck, say the Cubs.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to begin not far from here tonight in New York Harbor. On World News Tonight, U.S. and Iraqi forces storm into Fallujah. Our reporter is with them. The insurgents strike hard today in Baghdad. A new report on global warming. A part of the Arctic the size of Texas and Arizona has melted. The medication for heart failure that seems tailor-made for African Americans, which sets off a debate about race. And why a new video game is generating as much excitement in Hollywood as last weekend's blockbuster movie.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight in Iraq. The battle for Fallujah has begun.
Tonight, we remember Peter Jennings, the journalist, the leader, the American institution.
Here in the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon.
In Jackson, Mississippi, in the occupied West Bank. From St. Peter's Square in Vatican City.
No one did it quite like Peter Jennings. 50 years in broadcasting, an enormous loss, an amazing legacy.
From ABC News, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, I'm Charles Gibson. Peter Jennings once began this broadcast, his broadcast, by saying, "We have seen the news, and it is us." Tonight, the news is Peter.
On World News Tonight, terror alert. Security increased in the New York City subway after insurgents captured in Iraq say people were sent to place bombs in the system. Exclusive new details about the spy in the White House, why he did it, and the second country he stole information on. Brian Ross investigates. The scam artists arrested in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, money that never went to the sick children. Encouraging news for women worried about cancer, finally a highly effective vaccine for cervical cancer. Medicine on the cutting edge. And how are the lowly sheepdogs helping save the magnificent cheetahs? It's all about attitude.
From ABC News, this is World News Tonight. Reporting from ABC News headquarters, Bob Woodruff.
Good evening. We start tonight with breaking news. Here in New York tonight, officials say they are increasing security on the city's massive subway system.
Tonight, identities in danger. The information theft that may have exposed nearly every member of the military to identity fraud. And there are national security concerns. Our debtor nation. Americans on a credit card binge, adding $10 billion of debt to their credit cards in 1 month. Beyond steroids, another baseball player says his sport is riddled with performance-enhancing drugs with rampant use of a new substance that cannot be detected. And war of words. When a best-selling author accuses 9/11 widows of enjoying their husbands' deaths, has a line been crossed? Or is now all fair in political warfare?
From ABC News, this is World News Tonight with Charles Gibson.
Good evening. 5 weeks ago today, there was a seemingly routine household robbery in Montgomery County, Maryland that has turned out to be anything but routine. Welcome to World News. Tonight, drastic decision. Chrysler turns to bankruptcy, merges with Fiat, and signals a new start. But the road ahead may be rough. Panic or prudence? Schools shut down. The vice president advises avoiding travel. Are we overreacting to this flu? Terror tactics, new information on the techniques used to interrogate terror suspects. And growing green, guerrilla gardeners who take on secret missions to make public places more pleasant.
From ABC News headquarters, this is World News with Charles Gibson.
Good evening. It is being referred to as a surgical bankruptcy, quick and controlled, in the words of the president.
On World News, historic vote amid cheers and outrage. What were the big prizes some senators got for saying yes? And we answer your #1 question about this bill and the health of your family. Christmas week chaos, more long lines, more short tempers, passengers stranded at airports for the 3rd straight day. And nuclear truth or dare, as the White House turns up the pressure on Iran, we question Iran's combative president. And on the case, our own Sherlock Holmes tracks packages to see if the gifts you sent this holiday have a prayer of arriving on time.
From the global resources of ABC News, this is ABC World News with Diane Sawyer.
Good evening, and it is so good to be here with you tonight. And we begin with the seismic vote on health care reform. Tonight on World News, Casey Anthony not guilty. Inside the bombshell verdict, what did the jury see in her face? What about the evidence? And when she walks free, what then? What do her parents do? Washington watchdog, tax dollars supposed to help the unemployed. Who's putting them in their own pocket? Get healthy, the easy thing we can all do tonight at any age. Also, the royal squeeze, Will and Kate with a honeymooner's hug. And how good is the future king at street hockey?
From ABC News headquarters, this is ABC World News with Diane Sawyer.
Good evening to you. There was a gasp across the country in front of millions of televisions this afternoon. This is World News. Tonight, breaking point, a cry for help from a New York town turned into a hellscape by the storm. And we're there as people break down on the streets. We need help. Endless lines, hours for the bus, hours to get gasoline. Falling trees, the storm sending a message about danger in your yard. Where should your family ride out the next storm? Oval Office exclusive, 5 days to go, the first of our personal portraits of the men who want your vote. And jackpot, the woman who didn't know she'd won $23 million and at the last minute found the ticket in her car.
From ABC News, World Headquarters, this is ABC World News with Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. As we come on the air, it is getting darker and colder in New York and New Jersey and the storm zone.
From ABC News World Headquarters, This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it is great to be with you on this Labor Day, and it is an honor to begin this journey with you. Tonight, breaking news, your money, your taxes, and President Trump's tax plan. Is it now on shaky ground? The senator who says he is now a no. The president can only afford to lose 2 votes. And tonight, who benefits the most, the wealthy, the middle class? Tonight, the numbers right here. And free shipping Friday. It's tomorrow, but will your packages arrive on time? And the deals revealed just hours from now.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Thursday night, and we begin with your money, your taxes. Tonight, the horror near Miami, the catastrophic collapse, and the urgent search as we come on for any survivors. The deadly condominium collapse, the chilling and disturbing surveillance, showing the moment the 12-story building comes crashing down while most residents were asleep. Rachel Scott standing by live at the White House. And the new concern tonight over the Delta variant here in the U.S., the new clusters, where they're seeing them, including a group of kindergarten students. Matt Gutman on why they're so concerned.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a major night of news in this country. And we begin tonight with that devastating scene near Miami.